Welcome to Let's Play Eternal Daughter Episode 2. I'm Master Gothrin, and this time we'll be going to Blue Mountain. That is, of course, unless we die on the way. Our first order of business is to get this attack upgrade that tempted us last time. There's nothing here to test it on really, so we'll have to settle for the number increasing in the corner for now. We can come back to that later, but for now we should talk about the power-ups. Sitting behind this pod spitter is a small heart which restores 2 hit points, as well as a small green power-up that gives us 1 ammunition for our secondary weapon. There's also a large version of the green one, which gives 5. Just down here the game starts messing with you, and there's a fake mushroom which tries to eat you. If you've been being observant, you've probably been wondering about the fruit that seems to be strewn around the area. It is a thing, you're not going crazy, we just can't use it yet. Anyway, more importantly, down this tree there's a life upgrade. Now that we've finally been able to pick one up, I can talk about exactly what they do. Yeah, they increase your health. Likewise, generally speaking, those attack upgrades increase the amount of damage you do. That frog monster only took 3 hits instead of the 4 it took earlier. They actually also change your attack in other ways too, and we'll see that later on in this video. This pod splitter up here is probably the largest dick move in the whole forest. If you stand next to it then, when it attacks, you get hit in the face by its legs. On top of that, if you get hit when jumping, you can get knocked back to the previous area, which means all the damage you did to it has been undone, and if you killed it, it's come back to life. There's also the distinct possibility that you didn't find the boss or that save point, and when this guy invariably does kill you, you get sent all the way back to the beginning of the forest. Since I don't use it very often, I'm going to demo the charged shot. I mentioned earlier that it did twice as much damage, and it did kill that mushroom in a single swing. However, that's not the whole story. The fireball and the attack animation actually hit separately, meaning that in an ideal case you want to hit an enemy with both. Here we have our first experience with water, and I bet you're thinking, I bet we can get that attack upgrade. Well, we can't, and don't try. Whoops, we drowned. I'll show the game over screen properly at a later point. I'm pretty sure there'll be plenty of opportunities. And look, there's a save point right here, just outside. Only thing is, you just killed yourself and had to redo the whole area. Just after that save point, there's this hole in the ground. This is a mine. This is not blue, and it isn't a mountain. Don't go there. Fortunately, this comes after the save point, so you can rectify the mistake. Well, there are some really nice upgrades in the mines that we could get. Pretty much all of the enemies there hit for 2 or 3 damage, and we're ill-equipped to fight them. Instead, we really should follow the signs and head to Blue Mountain. I think this is actually the point where we learn the name of the forest, and the name of our species. This desert area we're in now is basically the hub area of the game that connects everywhere together. As well as Blue Mountain, we can also get to the Dungarga city from here. Also, north is up. As for enemies, it's pretty much the same story as the forest, including the fake mushrooms. Unlike normal mushrooms, they have little bits under that animate, so they're fairly easy to spot. They're actually more interesting for the sound effect they make when they try to get you. I'm pretty sure it's a stock sound effect from Multimedia Fusion and the Games Factory, and I think I've heard it in quite a few games. If we're willing to kill for it, this life upgrade can be ours as well. You usually end up killing this guy in the wrong place before you realise he turns into a trampoline. I neglected talking about the crabs around here until now. This one in particular is quite hard to dodge. Unlike all the other enemies around here, the lobsters do 2 damage, so I opted to get hit by the mushroom instead. Again, we can choose to explore, and we can find this secret cave. However, inside, we find a vertical shaft that we can't ascend, so we just have to leave again. At least it has a courtesy not to respawn the Dungarga trooper. I've actually been trying to show something with the way the Dungarga attack. They don't have invulnerability frames in the same way, so if you can hit them as they're about to attack, they actually don't attack at all. This actually applies to quite a few enemies, and we'll see it again in the next area. Dokra, the Guardian to Blue Mountain, is a key element and one of the most useful glitches in the game. I'm generally speaking going to try and avoid using glitches or otherwise getting items ahead of time, since I'm trying to show off the game as it was intended, but I'm going to try and show them off at some point. Anyway, we finally arrived in Blue Mountain. There's actually only 2 regular enemies here, the Gloom Eye below us and the Frost Cat above. There's additionally a few hidden areas we can't access yet. The stationary Frostcat seemed like a good enemy to show the game's collision system on. MMF, the game engine, has two options for this, overlapping and collision. Though both are pixel perfect, the game mostly uses the overlapping method. My first swing hit the enemy twice because it moved in between its foot and its head. That generated two separate hit events, damaging the enemy twice. This also means that if your attack doesn't stop overlapping an enemy, for example if you swing too fast with a rapid fire button, it only actually generates one event and you only hit the enemy once. This also means that for anything to hit anything else, it has to be drawn on top of it. On occasion, you'll see the Frostcat breath and the Gloom Eyes drawn on top of the HUD for that very reason. All in all, it seems rather unideal, but the game has to use this collision mechanism. For me, its attack swing is just an object that animates and doesn't move. If the sprite is stationary, the regular engine will just check if the first frame collides, and won't check again unless the object moves, even if the animation changes. We've managed to stumble through to the boss of the area, the Iknit Ice Warrior. Once again, this boss only has two attacks. Firstly, he tries to stab you with one of his claws. His second makes objects rise out of the floor to try and get you. Both can be handled by ducking and jumping respectively. Generally speaking, I wouldn't recommend ducking underneath that attack because of the third element in this fight, the Gloom Eyes. While a useful source of power-ups, it's very easy to get pinned between the boss's claw and a Gloom Eye, resulting in you getting hurt. Like pretty much all bosses, he can't be hurt when he's animating an attack. So really, you're better off keeping your distance and picking them off slowly, taking out the Gloom Eyes is relevant. In addition to that, there's one more mechanic that we'll see shortly. Bosses can drop upgrades, this time it's a life upgrade. This one will bring us up to the grand total of 7 hit points, which is a fairly good number to be getting on with. The life upgrade also refills your health to full, which can be quite helpful in some areas. Not so much here because there's a save point which also fills your health back up. There's a couple more areas with Frostcats and Gloom Eyes after the boss, so this time I'll talk about why they're dangerous. With the cats, the first thing you tend to do is run into the corner. So when you jump into their head and get hurt. The other thing that tends to happen is when you jump up to attack them, you get hit by the very last frame of their breath. You'll also notice that each hit does 2 damage to us. This makes them much more dangerous than the Gloom Eyes, which only do 1. The Gloom Eyes are actually dangerous though, as they come at altitudes where your attack just can't hit them. They spawn at the height you're standing, so if you're waiting for a cat to attack, they can really catch you out. That time I wasn't actually trying to demo getting hit by the breath, so it really can be quite dangerous. Up here is another area we can't get into just yet, though in this case we will actually end up going up there. Here we have a corridor blocked off by this large ice barrier. This time at least we do have the ability to get rid of it. It will however mean killing all the enemies in this area twice, so it can actually be quite demanding. Especially because the spawn system for the Gloom Eyes sometimes goes a bit odd and spawns 4 instead of the usual 2. I think that's related to moving very quickly away from the entrances at the bottom of the area. Once this last Frostcat is out of the way, we'll see what we can use to break through that ice wall. This large icicle can be knocked down and will destroy it, which encourages you to go down and investigate what's behind it. Of course, there was a save point in the next room. This upgrade brings our attack power up to 2, which visibly increases the range of our attacks, although it doesn't seem to necessarily increase the amount of damage they do. The Frostcats still take 4 hits. However, that increased range will help us a lot for an enemy in the next area. Anyway, other than very nearly dying, this is it for the trip into Blue Mountain. We're very nearly at the Shulin. There are however a couple of gotchas. Firstly, as you run into this entrance, a Gloom Eye can actually spawn right in front of you. Secondly, there's this pit. At the bottom of it there is a spike. I can only imagine how annoyed you'd be if that actually killed you. Right here is our first glimpse of the Shulin, and we can talk to all of them just like we could DeLoreans. The cave below us leads back to that place I'd say we'd be going to earlier, however that'll be in the next video. Fortunately, these are actually the people who can help me here, so we'll finally get some more plot development. They also make a reference to the coming darkness, which will be explained much later in the game. Of course, this wouldn't be Eternal Daughter unless there was a nice way to kill yourself just beforehand. Here's another upgrade hidden in the water that we can't get to. As an aside, the fish's official name is Dopefish, a reference I'm sure you're familiar with. It's kind of odd since they're not green and they look nothing like them, but what the hell. Anyway, cutscene, rest of the video and all that hat. In summary, Mia's mum is dead, and the Dungaga aren't really the bad guys after all. Also, Mia's powers come from her father, and no one will tell her who he is. Oh, and go to the Dungaga city.